My stepson told me I'm not his real dad and said I have no right to tell him what to do. You mean nothing to me. You're nobody, he said. So when it came time to pay for college, I told him to ask his real dad for the money instead. I never thought I'd talk about this, but I need to get it off my chest. My name is Robert. I'm 45 years old, and I own a high-end wine bar in town. I built it from the ground up and it's something I'm really proud of. 5 years ago, that bar introduced me to someone, or at least, that's what I thought. Melissa was a bookkeeper I hired to help with the business's finances. She was smart, organized, and had a calm, graceful presence. She made long work nights feel less stressful. At first, we kept things professional. I didn't want to cross any lines, but after a while, I found myself finding reasons to stop by her office, just to talk. Eventually, I asked her out. Want to have dinner with me? I asked one night after work. She smiled and asked, as my boss, or as a man? As a man, I said. That dinner led to another, and soon we were talking about spending our lives together. Melissa was kind and caring. Her son, Ethan, was polite and respectful. I felt like I had finally found a family. After a year of dating, we got married. Melissa and Ethan moved into my house, and I jumped into my new role as stepdad. I did everything I could for Ethan. I took him to sports games, helped with homework, made sure he had what he needed. I paid for trips, bought him the shoes he wanted, and gave him a life better than the one I had growing up. Ethan still saw his real dad, Kevin. Sometimes, I didn't like it, because from what I knew, Kevin had been a heavy drinker and had caused a lot of problems, so much that he lost custody. But Melissa believed it was important for Ethan to have a connection with his father. He's still his dad, she would say. Ethan needs to know his father still cares. I met Kevin once at a school event. He didn't seem sober to me, his eyes were unfocused, and he kept swaying, but I stayed quiet. After all, I was just the stepdad, right? Looking back, I wish I had seen the signs, but the real trouble hadn't even started yet. Time passed quickly, and soon Ethan was turning 18 and about to graduate. He was nervous about everything. What if something goes wrong? He'd ask. What if nobody comes? One night, I tried to calm him down. Why don't we throw your party at my wine bar? I suggested. We'll reserve the best area. His eyes lit up. He was excited to show it off to his friends. Really? My Instagram is going to blow up, he said. I went all out. I even took him shopping for a sharp, black designer suit. He looked like a young CEO. How many people are you inviting? I asked. About 30, he said. Great. Can you send me the guest list so we're prepared? I don't have one yet, he replied quickly. Just plan for 30. I should have pushed for more details, but I didn't. I just focused on making it perfect. The wine bar looked amazing that night. Warm lights, stylish decor, a menu of non-alcoholic drinks and fancy snacks. Ethan looked great in his suit. He was surrounded by friends, taking pictures and laughing. Melissa's family came too. Everything was going smoothly. Until Kevin walked in. I recognized him right away. He was clearly drunk, staggering, glassy-eyed. I'm here to wish my son a happy birthday, he shouted. He came straight to our table, looked at me with hate, and said, Get up. That's my seat. I'm his real father, not you. I stayed calm. There's plenty of space at the other table. Please join the guests there. No, he shouted. This is my place. You leave. I looked at Melissa, hoping she would help, but she just stared at her hands, saying nothing. I took a deep breath. This is Ethan's night. Don't ruin it. You can either sit down quietly or security will escort you out. Kevin got angrier. Oh, look at you, mister. Big shot with his money. Think you can buy my son? Buy love? People were staring. My staff waited for my signal. You have a bar, a big house, But you can't replace me. You can't buy family, he yelled. Then, suddenly, he threw a plate to the floor. Glass shattered. Food flew everywhere. He threw another, and another. My security team moved in. "Sir, it's time to leave," they said, taking him by the arm. They walked him out as he shouted drunken nonsense. The door closed behind him. Silence followed. Then the crowd slowly started talking again. I stood up and smiled. "Sorry about the disturbance, everyone. Drinks are on the house." The regulars went back to their evening, but Ethan's friends and family? They were whispering, watching. I could see people stealing glances at Ethan, at Melissa, and at me. I knew the story would be all over social media by morning. Ethan sat stiffly, pushing food around on his plate. The fancy suit that had made him look so grown up earlier now made him look small and overwhelmed. The party he had imagined, cool, picture perfect, had turned into a disaster. After about an hour, he mumbled, "I have a headache. Can we go home?" That was the end of the party. Guests left with polite smiles. But I heard the whispers. "Poor kid. Did you see his dad? I can't believe that happened." As soon as we got home, Ethan went straight to his room. I walked the girls upstairs, then went to check on him. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what. The next morning, after that awful night, Ethan came down to breakfast. He looked exhausted and barely made eye contact. "How are you feeling, buddy?" I asked gently. "Fine," he muttered into his cereal. That was it, one word. The days after that felt like living with a ghost. Ethan, who used to be full of energy and jokes, barely spoke to me. If I walked into the room while he was talking to Melissa, he'd stop mid-sentence. One night after he'd gone to bed, I spoke to Melissa. "Don't you think we should do something? Maybe he should talk to someone?" She waved me off. "He's fine. He just needs time." But he wasn't fine. None of us were. Still, we went to Ethan's graduation. I clapped so hard when they called his name. He looked great in his cap and gown, and when he glanced at us and smiled, I felt a flicker of hope. We threw a party at the house. I made sure everything he loved was there: truffle fries, steak sliders, the crab cakes he used to sneak from the kitchen. I even got him that giant 3-tiered chocolate cake. His friends came over, and for a while, it felt normal. Ethan was smiling and laughing, like his old self. I started to think maybe things were turning around. His phone rang. My heart sank. Then, "No way," I said immediately. "Ethan, you remember what happened at your birthday? He showed up drunk, made a scene, broke things." "That was your fault," Ethan snapped. "None of that would have happened if you had just moved and let him sit down. He's my real dad. You should have stepped aside." It felt like he'd punched me in the chest. After all this time, he blamed me? I looked to Melissa for help. "Melissa, please," I said, "tell him his dad's behavior was out of line." But she just sat there, staring at her hands again, saying nothing. Just like at the bar. Something broke in me then. 5 years of trying to be the perfect stepdad. 5 years of walking on eggshells. 5 years of keeping quiet, of making excuses. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Ethan," I said, steady but serious. "That was my bar. I threw that party. I got you that expensive suit. I did everything I could to make it special. Your dad showed up drunk, embarrassed you in front of everyone, destroyed property, and he didn't even bring you a gift. He brought a mess." Ethan's face twisted with rage. "Oh my God, here we go again," he yelled, throwing his hands in the air. "It's always about money with you, isn't it? I paid for this. I did that. You think money gives you the right to control everything." He turned to his friends, who were now awkwardly standing in the living room, clearly uncomfortable. "My real dad's coming," he said with a bitter laugh. "Maybe we'll finally have a normal person in this house for once." He pointed at me like I was dirt. Your dad is not coming into this house, I said, trying to keep calm, even though I was hurt and angry. Not after what he did at the bar. And that's when Ethan exploded. People were glancing at Ethan, at Melissa, at me. I could already tell this story would be all over social media by morning. Ethan sat stiffly, barely touching his food. The sharp, fancy suit that made him look mature earlier now just made him seem small and lost. The party he had dreamed of, perfect for Instagram, had turned into something he'd probably want to forget. About an hour later, he mumbled, "I have a headache. Can we go home?" That was it. The party ended soon after. People gave polite goodbyes, but I heard the whispers as they left. Poor Ethan. Did you see his dad? Can you believe that happened? As soon as we got home, Ethan went straight to his room. I walked the girls upstairs, then went to check on him. I wanted to say something, anything. The next morning, he came down to breakfast with dark circles under his eyes. He sat down, staring at his lap. "How are you feeling, buddy?" I asked gently. "Fine," he muttered into his cereal bowl. That was all he said. The next few days felt like we were living in a haunted house. Ethan, usually talkative and full of energy, barely spoke. Every time I walked into a room where he was talking with Melissa, he'd go completely silent. One night, after Ethan went to bed, I brought it up with Melissa. "Don't you think we should do something? Maybe have him talk to someone?" She waved her hand like it wasn't a big deal. "He's fine. He's just processing. Give him space." But it wasn't fine. None of it was. Still, we all went to Ethan's graduation. Melissa and I sat in the audience, and I clapped hard when they called his name. He looked great in his cap and gown, and when he glanced our way and smiled, I thought, for a second, that maybe things were getting better. Of course, we had a party at the house afterward. I made all his favorite foods, truffle fries, steak sliders, the crab cakes he always snuck from the bar's kitchen. I even ordered the giant 3-tiered chocolate cake that takes a week to make. His classmates came. The house was full of noise and laughter again. For a few hours, everything felt normal. Ethan was smiling, chatting, like the kid I remembered. I started to think maybe we were finally okay. Then his phone rang. He stepped into the hallway to take the call. When he came back, his expression had changed. He looked serious, like he had made up his mind. He walked straight up to me, for the first time in days, and said, "My dad's coming over. He wants to say congrats." My heart sank. "No," I said immediately. "Ethan, think about what happened at your birthday. He showed up drunk, made a huge scene, broke things. That was your fault." Ethan snapped. "None of that would have happened if you had just moved and let him sit down. He's my real dad. You should have stepped aside." It felt like I'd been punched in the chest. After all this time, after everything, he blamed me? I turned to Melissa, hoping she'd say something, hoping she'd finally speak up and set things straight. "Melissa, please," I said, "tell him how out of line his dad was." But she just stared down at her hands, quiet, again. Just like at the wine bar. Something inside me broke. 5 years of trying to be the best stepdad I could. 5 years of keeping my mouth shut. 5 years of excusing everyone else's behavior. 5 years of holding back my frustration. And I'd had enough. "Ethan," I said, my voice steady, "that was my wine bar. I planned that whole party. I bought you the designer suit. I did everything I could to make that night special. And your dad? He came drunk, embarrassed you, destroyed things, and didn't even bring a gift. He brought nothing but chaos." Ethan's face twisted in anger. "Oh my God, here we go again," he shouted. "It's always about money with you. I paid for this. I did that. You think money means you can control everything." He turned toward his friends, who were standing around uncomfortably. "My real dad will be here soon," he said with a bitter laugh. "It'll be nice to finally have someone normal around instead of this guy." He pointed at me like I was trash. Your dad is not coming into this house, I said, trying to stay calm even though I felt like I was breaking inside. Not after what he did at the bar. That's when Ethan completely lost it. His face turned red. He shouted at the top of his lungs. You're not my dad. You're nothing to me. Who do you think you are? Bossing me around? Stay out of my life. You're just some guy my mom married for his money. Silence fell over the room. His friends looked anywhere but at us, checking phones. Staring at the ceiling, Ethan turned back to them. Let's go. I don't want to be in his house. He put so much hate into the word it stung. His friends followed him out quickly, no one saying a word. The front door slammed shut, shaking the windows. I stood there, surrounded by half-eaten food and broken feelings. Surely now, Melissa would say something. She had to. Mel? I asked. She cleared her throat. Her voice was cold. You didn't have to throw the house and money in his face, she said. That was low. I stared at her, stunned. Are you serious right now? Where were you when your ex was throwing plates in my bar? Where were you just now, when your son stood up and screamed at me in front of all his friends? Melissa shook her head like I was the problem. You're the adult, she said sharply. You should know better than to argue with a teenager. I laughed bitterly. And you should know better than to keep hiding every time something gets hard, I said. You let your ex and your son treat me like I don't matter. Well, I'm done being the one everyone blames. Her face darkened. She didn't reply. She turned and walked upstairs. A minute later, I heard the guest room door slam shut. The next morning, breakfast felt like a funeral. Melissa sat across from me, pushing eggs around her plate, refusing to look at me. I was just about to get up when Ethan walked into the kitchen. He was still in the same clothes from last night, and I could smell the alcohol before he even sat down. I looked at Melissa, waiting for her to say something. She stayed silent, as always. Where were you all night? I asked calmly. Ethan looked at me with bloodshot eyes full of hate. None of your business, he said. You're not my dad. You're nothing, just a useless body in this house. Then he turned and stumbled upstairs to bed. Melissa just sat there, staring at her plate, quiet again. By now, I was starting to think silence was her only skill. The next week felt like we were living with a ghost, or something worse. Ethan wouldn't even talk to me directly. He'd act like I wasn't there. He'd say things like, Dad, can you ask your husband to pass the salt? While pointing at me like I was a piece of furniture. Or he'd walk in and say, this guy is in my way, and wait for me to move. I stayed quiet and just observed. I had spent 5 years trying to be a good stepfather, but I was done. It was time to let them show their true selves. And oh, they did. One Sunday, during another quiet dinner, Ethan ran in waving an envelope, excited. Dad, I got in. NYU accepted me, he shouted. My dream school. He hugged Melissa, and they both looked thrilled. Then Ethan looked at her and said with a smirk, Tell your husband he needs to pay for my tuition. Something in me snapped. I smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. I'm not paying for your college, I said. You've made it clear I'm not your dad. I'm nobody, remember? Then this nobody isn't paying a dime. Ask your real dad. Ethan's face turned red. You're just being cruel, he shouted. You're doing this to hurt me. I stayed calm. It felt like watching a storm through a window. I saw it, but it didn't touch me anymore. Mom, Ethan cried. Make him pay. Melissa turned to me with that fake polite voice I hated. Come on, honey. Stop joking. You know you're paying for his school. I stood up. I've been treated like nothing for weeks. Why would I pay for someone who doesn't even see me as part of the family? I walked away, with Ethan yelling behind me, throwing another tantrum, breaking things, crying loudly. Like father, like son, I thought. Later that night, Melissa came into the bedroom, furious. I'm tired of this, You have to pay for Ethan's school. I calmly replied, no, you and your ex can figure it out. She called me selfish and told me I needed to be the adult. I took a breath. He's old enough to know how he treats people. Why should I invest in someone who treats me with such disrespect? She stopped pacing and looked straight at me. Fine, pay for college or I'll file for divorce. She clearly thought I'd give in. I shrugged. Okay, let's get divorced. She was speechless. I told her I'd call my lawyer the next morning. She and Ethan needed to find a new place to live. She left the room in silence. The next morning, Ethan was already at the table, clearly set up to win me over. Melissa smiled sweetly. We've all had time to calm down, she said. Ethan added, we all overreacted. If you help with tuition, it'll show you care. I almost laughed. They thought I'd fall for it. I pulled out my phone. I just spoke with my lawyer. Divorce papers will be ready today. Their faces changed instantly. I turned to Ethan. Congratulations. Now you won't have to deal with your not dad anymore. He started crying, real tears this time, but I didn't feel anything. Melissa got up and stormed upstairs. Soon I heard them packing. No more yelling. No fake apologies. Just silence and suitcases. I thought it was over. It wasn't. That night, the messages started. From Melissa, let's talk like adults. We didn't mean what we said. From Ethan, I'm sorry if I hurt you, but you're being unfair. Then they got mean. You're ruining this family. Hope your money keeps you warm when you're alone. You'll regret this someday. I didn't respond. The divorce was quick. We had a prenup. She tried to fight it, but my lawyer shut it down. She got nothing. Now I hear they live in a small apartment. Ethan couldn't go to NYU and works at a mall. Melissa's trying to find work again but isn't having much luck. I've redecorated the house, got rid of everything that reminded me of them. The place feels lighter now. Or maybe I do. Free from trying to buy love from people who never really cared.